name's Suzee, and I'd like to welcome you to the first ever episode of my podcast, Crochet, Knit, and More with Suzee. And I really like to thank you for checking me out, and I hope you'll come back. My podcast will be to share my love of crochet, knitting, and other crafts with you. I'm going to be showing projects I've completed, or I'm working on, or I plan on doing in the near future. My focus will be to keep these crafts affordable by using acrylic or less expensive wool and acrylic yarns. And I'll also be using some repurposed or sale fabrics along with my shopping, sales, and thrift stores. I have been collecting crochet, knit, and embroidery and sewing magazines and books and patterns since my teens. And I'd like to share some of my favorites with you, along with new and vintage craft publications I've found along the way. I hope you'll find these books and magazines as interesting and helpful as I have. Going forward, my podcast will be, and like I said, I'll be featuring my works in progress, and the focus will be on free or affordable patterns, yarns, and materials. I'm going to share my finished projects. I'm going to share my finished projects with you, along with a review of how my experience with it went. And I'll give you my opinion of the pattern or the materials that I used. My future planned projects, I'm going to be focusing on free and affordable patterns that are readily available online or at the big box stores or in magazines that I've picked up that anybody could find here in the United States. Sorry for people that are watching me from out of the country, but perhaps there's some things that would be available on Amazon or eBay or whatever that you might be able to avail yourself of. I'm also going to feature my affordable acquisitions. Those would be yarn. I like a lot of knitters and crocheters, I have quite a stash, and everybody scanning yarn I didn't like. So I've been picking up a lot of yarn here on clearance sales or at thrift stores. Different places where you can find yarn that for a reasonable price. I am going to be using primarily acrylic yarns and some acrylic wool blends, natural fibers. I do have some cotton yarn that I use, and I'll talk about that later on. I'm going to be featuring some of my designs going forward. I just started doing this, and I'll be releasing my patterns when they're complete. Many of these will be free or at a nominal price. I'm thinking probably my first few I'm going to release for free, just to kind of dip my toe in and become more accustomed to designing these things. Also the vintage corner, and that's going to be highlighting older items. That'll be my various craft book, magazines, patterns, tools, website links, etc. Anything that would be dealing with older, and not just necessarily just older stuff, but a lot of the older things have come back. So I'll be featuring that, as well as the new stuff that I picked up too. A lot of things that I'm getting on sale or clearanced out either online or in the big box stores. And I'll also be doing reviews of yarn, fabrics, books and magazines and patterns, like I said earlier, of things that I've done. So, and I'm going to feature some occasional field trips, and that'll be to explore store sales, yarn hauls or material hauls, fabric hauls, any kind of a crafting type haul, thrift store expeditions, miscellaneous things that are outside of my studio that I think maybe you guys might find of interest. We live in a rural area in Michigan, and I thought maybe you might enjoy seeing some of the surrounding countryside and what I have to look out of my window. My intention... Oh, and I'm also going to be talking about podcasts and websites that I recommend and enjoy. Give a shout out to some of the ones that I really like watching and I think that are worthwhile, and that you might too. I'm going to be repurposing projects. I do a lot of thrift store buying, and I'll be showing some of the projects that I've done with repurposing. My intention is to podcast twice a month or more often if I have more items to cover. And I'm keeping the podcast to approximately 1 hour. I figure that's probably long enough for most people to sit and watch me talk. So I'm going to figure about an hour long would be plenty long enough at first. And I'll give you a little bit of information about me. I live in Southwest Michigan with my husband, our cat Brassy, and our little dog Coco. She's a Chiweenie. And she's also my YouTube channel avatar. And I hope each of my pets will make occasional guest appearances. For those unfamiliar, Michigan is the American state that is shaped like the left-handed mitten. We're relatively north. We border Canada, and we also border Illinois and Ohio and Indiana. And Lake Michigan borders the state. We're surrounded by water. We have the 5 Great Lakes that surround us. And we also have the state of Wisconsin, which would be immediately to the west of us. My podcast intro screen has a Michigan map with a small red dot will give you my general location. From time to time, I could feature Michigan-related information or events on the podcast that I think you might find of interest. But I've always been interested in crochet, knitting, and sewing, just about anything crafty since I was a small child. My dad was a self-taught crafter who had a limited budget, and I inherited my love of affordable crafting, I think, from him. I started making doll clothes when I was 7 or 8 years old, and this evolved into teaching myself to crochet and knit from books when I was in my teens. I basically am self-taught. The internet has been a lot of help to me in honing my skills in the past 10, 15 years. I've learned an awful lot from some of the tutorials that I've been able to find out on the web. Let's get started. First, I thought I would start with my works in progress. This is a free Ravelry pattern. It's called Mina's 2 at a Time Socks. And that's by Mina Philipp. She's on Ravelry. And for those of you who are just starting out with knit and crochet, you may not be familiar with Ravelry. It's a marvelous free membership website for crocheters and knitters. It has free crochet knit patterns. You can purchase inexpensive paid patterns there as well. And it has really easy to use databases to catalog your yarn stash, your tools, your crochet hooks, your needles, all your equipment, your library, your patterns, your books, magazines, etc., and listings of current and past future projects, and groups where members can share information related to the specific group's activities. If you've never been on Ravelry before, I would encourage you to take a few moments to check it out. I find it extremely helpful, and it saved me a ton of money because I can take it with me and look things up when I'm out and about, and it saved me from rebuying things I already have. And when it comes to my tools or my magazines or whatever, since I've got everything cataloged there, I'm able to find what I already have. So I've saved myself buying tools for the second and third and fourth time. Also, as well as, since I've got quite a stash of yarn, it helps me to match up what I have. If I'm looking for a particular dye lot, or if I don't have color to go with something, I'll look on there and see what I can match up with what I have in my stash. So it's really helped me a lot. I really like Mina's 2 at a Time sock pattern. It's very easy to follow, and it gives you options to use the fish, lips, kiss, heel. Say that 5 times fast. And that's I'll go into that a little bit more in detail in a moment. But Mina is also a YouTube podcaster. She's known as the Knitting Expat. And she has a very entertaining and informative podcast. And she's also an extremely talented designer. She does socks, hats, shawls, and baby items. And she's just starting to get into sweaters. And I would encourage you to check her out. She's got an excellent design aesthetic, as well as she has an excellent eye for things. She's a wonderful photographer, and she does an excellent webcast or podcast. And I like to say, too, that her patterns are available on Ravelry. The sock pattern that I use is a free one, but she also has quite a number of sock patterns that are very, very inexpensive. And she lived in New York City for quite some time, and she designed a lot of the things that have a New York aesthetic and a New York theme to them. So you might want to check her out on that and see what you can find on that. But I think you'll be very pleased as to what you'll find there in terms of her patterns and the way she's designed things. The pattern that she has is called 2 at a Time socks. I am not coordinated enough to do them 2 at a time. I do them 1 at a time. However, I find them fairly easy to make, and but I just love hand knit socks. I never thought I would. I couldn't understand why everybody was getting into socks. Thought, jeepers, you know, socks, you can buy them in any store. Why would you want to knit socks? And they are a bit time consuming to make. But once I made my first pair and tried them on, oh my goodness, I'm sold. They fit so much better than the ones you can buy from the store. They're so much warmer. I wear them inside my tennis shoes here in Michigan in the wintertime. And my tennis shoes have that kind of open weave, not the solid leather shoes or the, you know, the tennis shoes that have kind of like that open weave fabric on the outside, and air kind of gets into them, especially when it's really windy. And by goodness, these socks keep the air out. This is the first pair that I made, and I made a little contrasting heel because I wasn't sure if I had enough yarn to do this with. But this is what they look like. Now I've washed these several times, and they come out great. This will kind of give you an idea of what they look like. Now I used a US 1.5. That's a 2.5 millimeter, 47 inch. That's 120 centimeters. Sorry, don't know metric that well. Long circular needles. Now I use the Chiao, and I'll show you what that looks like. A lot of people are swearing by the Chiao needles. I don't know if you can see that from here or not. It might be backwards. Hopefully it's not. But the Chiao needles I find are extremely nice. They have a cord that goes between the two needles. And if you've used any kind of circular needle in the past, you'll know that it can be quite frustrating when those cords in between twist, and you're constantly playing with the cord, and you're taking more time with untangling that cord than you are with your actual knitting. It can be very frustrating. You don't have that problem with the Chiao. The Chiao, it has like it's a metal cord, cable, or whatever you want to call it. I guess it's more of a cable, but this thing is so nice that you won't run into that problem with that cord twisting on you at all, or that cable twisting. Now these I got off Amazon. It's either Amazon or eBay. I think it was eBay, come to think of it. It wasn't Amazon, it was eBay. And I think they were $12.99, which is a little pricey for one set of knitting needles, but I tell you, they're well worth it. I'd love to get their interchangeable set. Can't afford that just yet, but I tell you, I'm sold on these. And I'm going to probably go out the next time I'm on the internet and maybe order myself another pair of these. Right now I've got the 1.5s, like I said, US 1.5, and for sock knitting, for me, they're perfect. I'm kind of a tight knitter, but not real super tight, so those work pretty good for me. And what I said, I love the cable. It has no memory. It doesn't coil around itself like many of the other circulars would do. But anyway, that's the Chiao needles. Now the yarn that I used is the Patons. It's either Patons or Patons. I think it's Patons. I always want to say Patons, but I think it's the Patons Kroy sock. Now the colorway I used for this, I think it was the brown Marl color. And I'm making another pair. Well, these aren't really these are finished object. Hang on a second, I'm going to go get my works in progress here. Okay, here's my work in progress with the socks. Now these are the Mina 2 at a time, which I do 1 at a time. See if you can see this a little bit better. And you can see the Chiao needles. And you can see that red cord. The cord itself is, well, cord, I keep calling it cord, it's a cable, I guess. It's a metal cable with a plastic covering. But this thing will not twist on itself. It's real flexible. And it really eliminates a lot of that having to go back and try to get that cord untwisted from itself each time you do this in the round. So it is wonderful. It's a marvelous thing. I love it. Now, like I said, I'm using the colorway on this is the Patons Kroy socks. And this is the Singin in the blues striped colorway. And I think I've got a skein of it. Oh, here's the skein itself. You can kind of see it here in the lighting. And I have this other skein that I've been using. You're going to need 2 skeins to do these. Do a pair of socks with this. But this is what I'm talking about here. It's the Patons Kroy sock. And this is the Singin, the blue stripes colorway. And it does make a nice stripe on its own. You can see that, how it's striping up. And that just does it by itself. Now, this is a fine weight yarn. It's 75% washable wool. and 25% nylon yarn. Comes in 50 gram, 1.75 ounce skeins. And it's $5.99 a skein at our Hobby Lobby here in the Midwest. Now, I don't know what it would run where you're at, but they have it similarly priced out on, I believe it's Yarnspiration's website. And I believe they're the manufacturer, or they handle the distribution of the Kroy sock yarn. And they have other colorways too there. You're a little bit more limited in the big box stores as to what colors you can get. It's about 2 skeins to make a pair of adult size socks with a reasonable leg length. I normally make mine about 7.5 inches long. And another thing too that would help with that when you're purchasing the yarn, if you can catch an occasional sale on it, Hobby Lobby and some of the others, I believe they also have this at Joann Fabric. The colors you can get are a little different than what the Hobby Lobby carries. They have some different colors, you know, each store. I couldn't speak to Walmart. I've never seen it at our Walmart here in the Midwest, but maybe they carry it elsewhere in the country. But occasional sales and coupons will bring it down a little bit. I highly recommend this yarn. It does make a nice pair of affordable socks. It does wash up nicely, and it's kind of a rough feel when you're working with it. But once they're washed, and you can machine wash and dry these, they get a lot softer. Now, I did find it to be a bit of a challenge to work with, as it tends to kind of twist on itself when you're working with it. However, at the price point it's at, and the finished object you get from it makes it worth the hassle. So, alright, and I'm going to move on to a yarn that I've used from the Hobby Lobby for socks that I found to be extremely helpful. I think you might too. And this is the, I had to reach over, pardon me. This is the Premier Yarns wool-free sock yarn. Now, for those of you who do not like wool, and some people can't tolerate it, I know it can be a little scratchy and it could be, you know, a little bit hard to take. Some people have allergies to it too. I know myself that I've got some fabric allergies. Okay, the Premier Yarns, it's the wool-free sock yarn. This is a colorway Grapes. It's a number 2 fine weight. It's 93% acrylic and 7% PBT, and I think it's some sort of acrylic. I'm not exactly sure what that stands for. It's, like I said, it's a wool-free sock, and it's very soft and very warm, and it works up great too. I have a pair of socks here that I've made with a different colorway. This one's called Utah. And you can kind of see what it looks. It's like it has its own little patterning and it's self-striping. And these have been washed probably, I would say, at least 10 times. Washed and dried, and they come out great every time. They go back to their own shape. They do tend to stretch out a little bit after you worn them, but I can probably wear them at least twice before they start to stretch at all. And like I said, the colorway I've got here is called Utah. Now, this yarn is a little less expensive than the Kroy. I believe the Hobby Lobby has it for $4.99 a skein, and it's about the same size as the Kroy, Patent Kroy. It's 50 grams. It's, you can see they're smaller skeins. 50 grams, 1.7 ounces. And you need 2 skeins of these to make a decent sized pair of socks. Now, if you're making the shorter socks, you could probably get by, if your feet are smaller, you could probably get by with one. With a 40% off coupon at Hobby Lobby, it basically takes it down to $3 a skein, which is great. And as with the Kroy, I need 2 skeins to make a decent sized adult pair of socks. My sole of my foot, I don't have real big feet, but I've got probably medium sized feet. I take a US ladies size 8, and the bottom of my foot is approximately 9¼ inches long. So, and I make a 7.5 inch leg. So I'm able to get by and still have a little bit left over with 2 skeins for a pair of socks. Just a little word of caution though, I was a little bit disappointed with the inconsistent color dyeing between the skeins that I ran into with this Utah colorway. Now that's the pair I just showed you. You can kind of see here, and the difference is which sock was it? It's this one here. You can see in the toe here where there's a lot of white there on that section. See it right in here? Whereas on this sock, it's not like that. You can see the complete difference. It was more of a brownish orange. You can see right there. That was very disappointing to run into that big white splotch and not have it quite match what I had on the other sock. Now it matched pretty good up to that point, and I think what happened, it was inconsistent dyeing. You may run into that with some of this, I don't know. Fortunately, the spot where it did that at, it's in the shoe. You probably wouldn't see it, so it's not a deal breaker for me. I did, like I said, I went out and got another skein of it. This is in a different colorway. I'm hoping I don't run into that problem between the two skeins. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that this was just an aberrant thing that happened with it. A one-time deal, it won't happen again. So just thought I'd throw that out there for what it's worth. When you're doing the socks from Mina's pattern or any other sock pattern, the one thing that kind of put me off doing socks was I was afraid of the heel. And I've knit for a number of years. I don't feel as comfortable knitting as I do crocheting. I've done crocheting a lot longer. But I kind of hesitated doing socks because the heels were kind of daunting to me. And I didn't really like the way that heel gusset and picking up stitches for that. It kind of put me off of it. So I didn't really do anything with the socks because of that. Now, a number of people on Ravelry, as well as Mina, talked about the Fish Lips Kiss Heel pattern by the Sock Therapist. Now, that's a $1 pattern from Ravelry. And highly recommend, if you're going to try socks for the first time, to download that. It's $1. It's well worth the $1, I'll tell you. She has a lot of really, really helpful information in there on how to knit socks, how to measure feet for them, and how to do the heel, and the heels come out perfect every time. You don't have to fiddle around with a gusset and a heel flap. It's just like a regular pair of socks, but they fit me great. Now, maybe you might have a little different heel than what I have. I've got like a normal, I don't have a skinny heel, I don't have a big or a small heel, it's just kind of medium. Fits me great. Now with you might run into difference. I would imagine it depends on how your foot anatomy is, but for me it works wonderfully well. And like I said, I take a ladies size B, 8B shoe, US. So anyway, that's it on the stuff I wanted to tell you about the knitting socks for my works in progress. Another work in progress I have, and I don't know if I'm ever going to finish this one. It's Granny. The Granny stripe throw. And imagine any of you guys that have been on the internet a bit have probably seen a pattern or two of this. You can kind of see it. I've got it started, and frankly I don't know if I'm going to finish it or not. I might just leave it where it is. It's probably about maybe 3 feet by about, not quite 3 feet. It's just about square. The problem I have with it, it is too heavy. I used a worsted weight yarn. I use a lot of Red Heart Super Saver in it to kind of use up some of my extra, and it's just too heavy of a weight. I think I would have probably been better with Sport weight or number 3 weight or DK or whatever you want to call it. It's just way too heavy. I like the way it looks, I like the pattern, but the weight of it is just too much for me. So frankly, I don't know if I'll ever finish it or not. But if you're interested, I started out with 137 double crochet foundation stitches, and I learned how to do that off YouTube. Rather than doing a chain, you do like, it makes a chain in your first thing of double crochet, your first row of double crochet. So it's kind of a neat thing if you want to learn how to do that. All you really have to do is go to YouTube and do the search thing for double crochet foundation stitch, and it'll show you how to do it. It's quite easy, and I like doing that better than the chain. And another thing too, it makes, I don't know if you've run into this, but this has been a problem I've had for a long time. I tend to make my chain maybe a little less tight than I do my stitches, and sometimes when I start out with a chain, the beginning edge of my whatever I'm making, whether it's a scarf or Afghan or throw or whatever tends to be a little bit stretched out more than my, you know, when you go to end it. So the ending row, or the ending part of my thing, is always a little bit tighter than what I started with. I don't run into that when I'm doing the foundation chain. It's really great. It kind of helps you be a little bit more consistent with the start and the finish of it. So I highly recommend checking that out if you're interested in that, if you run into the same problem. I imagine it's a fairly common problem with crochet. And it's kind of frustrating to spend that kind of time on a project and go to finish it up and have the beginning of it 6 inches longer in width than the ending of it. So it's just me. I don't like looking at that. I want it to be, if I'm going to do something, spend my time on, I want it to look decent when I get it done. So you might try that and see if you have any better luck with it, or have as good luck with it as I did. I think that really is something I'm going to probably continue with down the road. The one thing I'm working on right now, I said I'm going to be doing my own designing, and I'm dipping my toe in the water on that. I'm calling it the Suzee shawl. How creative, huh? And what this is, I've already made one. I'm making another one just to make sure I've got my stitch count and everything consistent. Now I've done this in the colors of Western Michigan University, which is a school not too far from where I live. It's in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and I live a bit east of there. Yes, there is a Kalamazoo. And what this is, well, I got the wrong side here. And you can have it either way. Basically what this is, it's an asymmetric shawl. And if you want to go to my Ravelry page under Suzee Q57, I've got a finished version there of it. You can see a little bit more of what it is, or what it's going to look like. And I'll keep showing this as we go on, what my progress has been with it. But I'm going to be putting this out once I get it finished as a free download on Ravelry that anybody can have. It's a simple design. I kept it real simple. Like I said, it's got the color blocks. You can go in any color you want. I went with 2, but you could certainly add a 3rd or 4th color to it if you wanted to. It's basically garter stitch, alternating with stockinette, and then easy lace repeats. And I wanted to try lace. I never tried lace before in knitting. I've done lace with crochet, and I thought, well, okay, this will kind of challenge me a little bit. And I found it's fairly simple to do. So I thought, well, it's something else I can try. So anyway, that'll be out soon. I hope maybe within the next month or so I'll be able to release that. And just watch for it here. And I'll give a link on a future podcast when I do have it done, and double check to make sure it's, you know, going to work up right for everybody else too. It was knit with the Hobby Lobby. I love this yarn, Sport Weight. That's the beige color. And then I had some brown DK weight that I found at our Big Lots, probably about 3-4 years ago, and I bought a ton of that. They had it for like $1 a skein, and it was quite nice yarn. I think it was some sort of overrun from Premier Yarns. I couldn't tell you for sure what exactly it is. It's an acrylic of some sort, but not exactly sure, you know, what it is. And it's kind of a medium chocolate color brown colorway. I'm using a size 6. 4mm 29-inch circular needle on that. So, but it'll be coming out soon, so hopefully that'll give us something to kind of look forward to. I am wearing, I'll get to my notes here, this is called the Found Shawl. It's by Sue Clark, and it's a free Ravelry pattern. And I made it out of the Bernat Baby Sport Ombre yarn, and I really like this stuff. Sorry about the rattling. This is what the yarn looks like. Comes in a very huge skein. I believe it's a light 3, but it seems to be, well, I'd say it's kind of a DK weight. It's a light 3. It's 100% acrylic. The color I used, hang on a second, get my glasses out, I can see what I'm looking at. Color I used, I believe, is called Blossom. And it's 180 grams. And 9.8 ounces, and I believe I got it on sale. I think I paid $7.99 US for it. They do have a smaller skein of this at Walmart, and I think they want like $5.99 for it. But this, I believe I got at Joann Fabrics. And I think I got it on sale for like $7.99. It's been a while since I picked it up. It's a nice pink, white, and a light tan variegated. And I just love the way it works up. Excuse me, here's my notes on this. It's regular price $10. I got it for $6.99 on sale. That's at Joann Fabrics. And once in a while they'll have this on sale. And the smaller skein, sorry about that. And I believe this is a same one I got. Let me just double check here. Okay, this is the other skein that I had. And this you get a little bit more because, you know, obviously when you buy the solid colors you get more yarn than with the variegated. You always get a bit less when you do the variegated. And this is called Baby Taupe. And I believe, yeah, it's the same thing. It calls for a US 6 or G crochet hook or US 6 knitting needles. Light 3. And I just love this yarn. It works up so nicely. I believe with this shawl here, I think I used, as I say what I've got on here, I don't remember exactly what needles I used on this. Let's see if I got a note on this. Oh, here we go. Size 8. So I went up a couple needle sizes because I tend to knit a bit tight. So that really opened up the material and it made for a lot softer, cushier, spongy, nice, cushy I guess would be how you would classify this. I really like this. I think it's a very nice shawl. It's especially a good one. You start out in one of the corners and you work your way out, like one corner here, and it just expands as you go. It's very simple to make. It would be a great beginner project for somebody that wanted to try making a shawl for the first time. Maybe they'd made a scarf or a hat or something first few times and they want to try a shawl. And I really like this. It's kind of like a shawlette. It's not as big as your conventional shawl, but it's big enough to say it's really not a scarf. It's kind of between a scarf and a shawl. So it's really nice. It's going to be nice under a winter coat. Keep your neck warm. And like I said too, when you're starting to get a little crepey around the neck, it covers a multitude of sins. So yeah, keep that up there, kind of, you know, camouflage, you know, the turkey neck, you know. It's good for that too. So anyway, what I'm looking at too is this is another finished object I've got, and we're coming up now in the States here to our college football season and our professional football season. And what I have here is called the game day scarf. Okay, if you see it, it's kind of hard. It looks like it's black. The colors here are not showing up really great, but what I use it in is a dark blue, like a navy blue. There's a white and kind of a yellow. It's showing more orangey yellow, but it's more of a kind of like a sunny sunflower yellow. Okay, and those are the Michigan State colors. University of Michigan. Not Michigan State, sorry. That's green and white. Sorry, I said this is University of Michigan, not Michigan State. Wolverines, okay? But anyway, I'll show you how, you know, I'm not a real big sports fan, but I do have to support my local teams. And this was really a nice one to work to. It's kind of a similar knit to the Found Shawl. This is the Found Shawl by Sue Clark. This one is by Lori Kaake, and both of these are free Ravelry patterns. Let's see what I got here. Hang on just a sec. Here we go. Yes, Game Day Scarf by Lori Kaake. Like I said, it's a free Ravelry pattern made in University of Michigan colors. That would be white, navy blue, and a bright yellow. And this is a real simple one too. It starts out in the corner and it expands from there, and it would be a simple beginner project as well. And I really like this. It's kind of like a scarf and a shawlette together. So I used, I believe, not quite a whole skein of the yellow and the blue, and just a little smidge of the white to do that whole scarf thing, shawlette, whatever you want to call it. So, and each one of these things are $2.29, and you can get them on, like I said, you can, if you can catch a 30% off discount, they do that probably, I don't know, once every 6 weeks or so at Hobby Lobby, or if you can find a comparable DK weight yarn, works great for it. And I'd highly recommend that pattern too. It's a good pattern, really, really nice. It works up quickly. And for a beginner, it's a perfect starting thing to work with. And for people that, you know, don't have a ton of money, that want to have something that look nice, I would recommend those patterns. They're free, as well as the yarn that I used. Or you could probably, if you wanted to, since you don't have to worry about so much the gauge on that, you could use any yarn you had. If you had some stash yarn you wanted to use up, it would work well for that it would work well for that too. So let your imagination kind of run with it and do whatever you want, you know. That's the nice thing about knitting and crochet or whatever. You don't necessarily have to do, especially when it comes to something like that, you don't have to follow everything that the designer said about doing. You know, they kind of like it too, but then again, they understand that you have a creative bent too, or it's whatever you have on hand. And if you want to use up some of your materials or whatever, and maybe you want to use a worsted weight on that, go for it. I would. Just give it a try. All right. Now, that's it on my finished objects I wanted to show for right now. Let's see what else we got on here. Oops, I got one more finished object. Sorry about that. I wanted to show this. It's called Lacy Lamb. And I finished her a while back. But I just love this little creature. She sits here by my craft table. And I got her out of a book that I got for Christmas. It's called Emma Brown. It was written by Emma Brown. And the book itself is called Crocheted Bears and Other Animals. And it's 25 toys to crochet. And the book's available from Barnes & Noble. I got it for $19.95 US, and I believe it's also available in Canada for $23.95. It could also be, the author, or the designer, is British, so I'm thinking the book itself might also be available for sale in the UK. Really some really neat things in it. I'd highly recommend that book. Here's the book. Love this book. It's got the cutest things in it. There's bears and bunnies, monkeys, dogs, cats. I believe there's a hedgehog in here. A koala bear, bees. The little bees here, I think, cuter. No, get out. You can see the little bees up there buzzing around. It's Missy and the bumblebees. They're called bumblebees. It's just a very, very creative little book. It's not so small. It's got probably close to 100 pages in here. It's got birds in it. There's poofs. There's these tree toppers. They're kind of like a little whimsical character, you know. Here's a picture of Lacy that I made. It's just a very, oh, there's little fish and turtles in here too. There's all sorts of things. Highly, highly recommend this. They may also have it in your library. A lot of times these books are available to be checked out at your local library too, if you can't afford to go buy one right now. And they're kind of expensive to go out and pick up. So, like I said, I would recommend that book if anybody would, you know, care to go out and maybe take a look at it or pick it up. It's got a lot of really neat little things in it. Now, Lacy, I made her from worsted weight, Red Heart Super Saver. And I believe it was just white, an orchid colorway, her little faces and her feet and her little paws are made out of, I believe it's the orchid colorway. I used the crochet hook, or which is 5mm. And she came out a bit larger than the pattern, which called for a DK weight, and this was a worsted weight yarn. So she came out a bit larger than that, and I wanted it anyway. I wanted a little bigger toy. So if you make it out of DK, she'll come out to be about 10.5 inches, or that's 26 centimeters from head to foot. My worsted weight lamb is about 16.5 inches tall, or long, and about 41.91 centimeters from head to foot. So she's a little bit bigger. Next time, I think this is kind of going long. Next time I'm going to do a little bit about my vintage corner. Right now, I think I'm going to probably end up wrapping this up. This is my, like I said, my first go at this. And I'm kind of getting my bearings as I go. Try not to move around too much or shake the table or say and too much. Did it again. But let me know what you'd like me to cover and kind of give me an idea of, you know, how you think this went. And I just wanted to get involved with the creative community where I'm at. Most of the people that I'm with, they're really not into knit and crochet, and I wanted to be more of a, I don't know, have more of a outlet, I guess is the word I'm looking for this, my skills and my abilities on here and my interest. Like I said, I watch a lot of the YouTube podcasters, and I've learned an awful lot from them. I find them extremely interesting, and I just wanted to be part of the community. So that's one of the reasons why I decided to do this. Plus, I figure, too, I've got a bit to add. I've got something to say, I think. And I just love anything creative, and I like to be around people that are also with the same mind bent. So anyway, I guess that's going to be it for my first podcast. Let me know. Hit the like button if you like it. If you think there's something else that I should add to this, or you got any ideas for future topics, I'd be glad to hear them. And as we go forward, I'm going to be talking about some of my vintage books and some of the other books that I picked up on sale recently at craft stores and garage sales and all sorts of things, and some of the patterns that I want to try off of that. The problem is you know, as you know, if you're into knit and crochet or sewing, there's so many things out there that it becomes difficult in terms of what you want to do next. It's hard to make up your mind what you want to do next. All it is you're going to do something else. So I'm looking into that and looking forward to my next project. And I'm looking forward to doing my next podcast. So what I'm going to do is, I think as a parting thing on here, I'm going to put a video of the creek across the street from my home. So you can kind of get an idea what our countryside looks like here in Southwest Michigan. I think the creek is looking really good right now. It's all leaved out. Everything's real green. And I'm going to put a video that I did just the last week or so of the creek. And then I'm going to juxtapose that with one I did back in, I believe it was January or February, so you can kind of see the difference in the season. So I thought maybe that'd give you kind of an idea where I'm living at. Countryside we have around here in Michigan. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for right now. I appreciate you tuning in, and I hope you join me again. Thanks a lot. We'll see you later. Goodbye. Creek across the street from where we live. And we see a lot of wildlife out here. It's deer and cranes. It's a family of cranes that live out here. But anyway, that's our creek. It was up almost over the bank about 2 weeks ago from all the snow melt. Let's see if I can get a shot of it down here. Come on, Coco. Come. I got Coco out here with me. A little white water down here, not much, but just a little bit. You can see there's still some ice. It's March 11th, 2018, so we still have quite a bit of cold yet. You can see the ice. Trees. And there's Coco. Anyway, that's our creek. I'm going to give you an idea where I'm at. See if you can see back there. There's no telephoto on here, but kind of give you an idea of countryside where I live.